is Notsam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Well, Notsam Wrestling has become the home of the greatest conversations about wrestling in the world, and that's all because of the people that we have on here to help us have one of those conversations. A former writer for the WWE, somebody who one of the people who I think a lot of people know just from Twitter because he's got fire tweets. I've heard that from multiple people. Oh, why do you follow Kaz? Like, where do you know him from? I don't know. I guess I just saw his tweets. He's now a host on the MSG network here in New York. He's got his podcast, Say Less with Kaz. What's going on, Kaz? How are you?
I'm great, Sam. And you know what? I'm glad that the tweets are the nice opening for people to like me because, if they got to know me first and then saw my tweets, it would be the complete opposite effect. They're like, I like you so much, and now these tweets make me think you're an entirely different person.
Yeah,
but it's good. It's good to be on the show. I love coming on the show and talking wrestling with you, man.
Yeah, the tweets are a good representation. The tweets are your representative, and you're like,
it's my business card. It's like, you haven't followed me. Like, you see the blue check. Come on, I'm serious here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I told you, I reached out to you on your way to Wrestlemania. You were there in the stadium, last weekend, and I was really happy for you. So before we get to Wale, because you know how happy I was for Wale, but before we get there, your experience being there, first of all, you're in an interesting position, right? Because not only have you been backstage at WWE shows before, but these are your former coworkers that you're now going back to see in a completely different scenario, in a completely different role. You're now there with Wale as part of the crew. So what was it like for you at WrestleMania from a professional perspective and then just from a fan perspective?
Well, I think it started earlier in that week because we announced the Wrestlemania drop.
Yes.
Obviously we couldn't do Wrestlemania the way we wanted to. I mean, the last thing I would want is like all of the WWE roster at a party. One person comes back with a positive test, and it's like, all right, night 2 is canceled. Yeah. So I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm super good on that. But the Foot Locker and Foot Action collaboration was really dope to do. I worked with my man John Hawk and Jed Berger and a bunch of other really dope designers and Wale to kind of make this whole thing happen. So it kind of started early, and seeing like the reaction to that, seeing people, we almost sold out of every line of clothes, and just kind of seeing the reaction from the superstars that we featured was really cool because I don't think they knew it was coming. So, like, I know Sasha Banks had some really nice things to say, Booker T, Mark Henry, everybody, Kofi, The New Day, Big E. So it was cool landing and seeing people like wearing the shirts and wearing the hoodies. So it's like, okay, this is nice. And then getting to the stadium, and obviously everybody feels a type of way when they leave WWE because for whatever reason you could be one or the other. But the combination of not being there for a while, not having fans, not being able to experience a show with fans, just really kind of made all the petty things I ever think about, like being I don't know, like a critiquer or talking about wrestling. Like, I didn't care. I was just there to have fun and see my friends. And, it was really cool being back there, and everybody just showing like so much love. And a lot of these guys I haven't seen in a long time. I don't know if they've been keeping up with what I've been doing with MSG or my podcast or with Spring Hill and LeBron and all those folks, but they were super duper cool. Just guys that I still keep in touch with on a regular basis, like from New Day guys and Heyman and Lashley and the Hurt Business and all those dudes. And it was just a great experience. Like, I felt like I was back in high school, like a high school reunion sort of thing, and catching up with old friends and catching up with their families and seeing all that. It was doubly enjoyable. Like, if you're a casual fan who got there and enjoyed it, I enjoyed it like 10 times more because it's like, oh my God, these are my friends. And like, they're like really happy to be back doing what they do so good. And that's entertaining, live audiences. So I really enjoyed it.
And I got to believe too, that when you're designing shirts for these people, or when you're part of that process, right, that it has to feel so rewarding when the people that you designed on the shirt is wearing the shirt. Like, I feel like everywhere I looked that weekend, Mark Henry was sporting his Wale Mania Mark Henry shirt. He seemed proud of it. And I was like, that's the mark of success.
Yeah, and on top of it, it was like the reason why, we were celebrating Black champions.
Yes.
And, we have, and obviously Wale Mania is for everybody, but, it's really built within, it sprung up out of a culture that we 7 years ago didn't think was fully represented. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so being able to have an artist like Wale be such a huge wrestling fan and, be able to take his fame and take everything he does and just give it back to this community that we love. It was just a nice marriage, and being able to celebrate, champions that we look up to, champions that we're fans of, champions that we're friends of, and them actually like the stuff and like the merch and wear it and pump it for like, without even asking them.
Yeah.
That is, they have 1 million shirts that they sell on WrestleMania weekend. And for them to be either wearing it or showing it off, it meant the world to me, man. It was really dope.
How great was it when Michael Cole made that call at the beginning of the match? Like so often those moments are kind of like
wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Exactly. Like, this is historic. You know why, and stuff like that. And for Michael Cole to sit there and say, this is the first time 2 Black women are headlining WrestleMania. It was like, there it is. It is.
And that's why Michael Cole's the GOAT, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously we all know why it was special. They were tiptoeing around it throughout the road to WrestleMania. But a lot of times you just got to come out and say it. You got to make sure people understand the gravity and why it's important. And man, I don't know if WWE cameras caught this or anything like that, but right before I didn't hear the call. Obviously, I'm in the crowd or whatever, right? And Bianca and Sasha, I can curse on here, right?
Yeah, sure.
Bianca and Sasha are standing in the middle of the ring before they square off, and they're looking at each other. And if you see, they both turn and look camera side, and everyone would sit down. And there's a picture of it on Sasha's Instagram. And I stood up and I said, "Let's fucking go, ladies! Let's go!" I started clapping, and they looked at each other, and then like everybody started getting like the chill bumps, like, "Oh my god, it's really about to go down." And I think it was I was there for Sasha Bailey in Brooklyn.
Yep.
And at that point, that was the best women's match, or one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. And that was the only other time I got goosebumps watching a match, you know what I mean? Where it's, they've come so far, you know what I mean? Not just those 2 particular talents, but just women's wrestling in general, Black entertainers in WWE in general. Like, they've come so far in such, a relatively short amount of time. It didn't seem like a character like Sasha Banks could even exist in the WWE world 10 years ago, and now that they're the headlining event at WrestleMania, Bianca Belair wasn't on the main roster last year.
I know.
So it was incredible. Michael Cole, I'm so glad he made it known. I'm glad they didn't tiptoe around that. I'm glad they didn't say, "Oh, this isn't about race." I guess it isn't on the most part, but acknowledge it, and he did that.
Yeah, like, just like the idea that, like, well, this isn't Black history, this is history. Well, it's both, right? It's both. And like, the whole point of not acknowledging that it's also Black history is that lack of if we're gonna go forward with representation, we should represent the fact that Black history is a thing.
Yes.
And that's what's moving forward, along with legitimate history. By the way, along with women's history and all, like, it all coexists.
And it wasn't just like, oh, they're getting this match for the history. It was like, no, they were the main attraction that night.
Yeah.
Out of all the matches on night one, that one match everybody wanted to see the most, and they delivered both of them. I mean, Sasha Banks, I've said it many times, is the greatest women's wrestler I've ever seen. There's never been a big match where she didn't outperform or didn't show out. And she did what she had to do. I know we give Bianca Belair all the flowers because, I said she's the FloJo of wrestling. I'm like, yo, you give her the ball and she will take WWE into places that they've never been. Granted, The Rock is The Rock, Stone Cold, Cena is Cena. Bianca Belair, a Black woman being at the top of your company, is going to take it places that it's never entered.
Yeah.
So, but I think while doing that, we got to acknowledge Sasha Banks as well for being, just the perfect dance partner for this moment.
Yeah. And I mean, and everything about that, that's why I loved it so much too. And that's why I felt a similar way when Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda headlined WrestleMania 35, and it was like, this is just that was the moment for women's wrestling in general. And part of that moment is, I think you made a great point, is this isn't in the main event for history's sake. What makes it historic is it's in the main event for main event's sake. What makes it historic is there's a stadium full of people that are watching this going, this is the main event. They see it as the main event. They don't see it as, well, we're doing this because it's time. They see it as, we're doing this because this is how these things work. The biggest match goes on last.
You can't look at Bianca Belair even back in the Combine days on like NXT Combines and not say this person's a major star. And obviously we say that about a lot of people that come and kind of go, but it's a whole other thing to kind of live up to that promise. And she's done it every step of the way. She killed it at Royal Rumble. She killed it on NXT, even though she was never NXT Women's Champion. I feel like this kind of makes it a little bit more satisfying.
Yeah.
That they knew, they had the foresight to be like, this ain't the moment right now. This is the moment. To kind of crown her as that face of the company. And man, it was one of the, it's a historic night for many reasons. You mentioned it with the fans being back in arenas and stadiums and stuff like that. Like, it felt normal. It felt good. Like, everybody just felt good after that night. And it was so much fun. Much fun to be there. I'm
so glad you brought up the Combine, because I watched it when it first came on, and I remember like sitting there on a weekend and just leaving it on. It's like 5 hours long or whatever it is. And it's just interesting. It's an interesting thing to just have on in the background while you go through your day. But I remember specifically Bianca at that Combine. I remember going up to her at the next show after that, like talking like, what you did with that deadlift was unbelievable. And she goes, and she was like, yeah, and I hadn't deadlifted in like whatever she said, a year or two before the Combine. I didn't even think I was going to deadlift that day because I had hurt my back or whatever. But she was like, but once I got there, I did it. And I was like, and you're just setting records just because. I didn't know I was going to do that this morning when I woke up, but why not? It's here. Let's do it.
Yeah, and they haven't had one since.
I know.
It kind of makes you think like they knew what they had with her. You know what I mean? From day one. It's like, okay, we're going to have a Combine now and never have another one again. Because it's like, all right, well, we got to let people know that this person is going to be special. And she's lived up to it ever since.
So what was the vibe like? You were there as a fan in the audience. What was the vibe like first time back for everybody? You were there for both nights, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, the vibe was night one. I know we talked about it off air, but I felt like night one, everyone was just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Right? Like we got there right as the rain delay happened. And, I'm tweeting like, yo, I've all the WrestleMania. I think I've been to the last, I mean, obviously not counting last year. I think I've been to every WrestleMania since 31. And they've never had a rain delay, they've all been outdoors except for I think AT&T Stadium and New Orleans, but also all of them have been outdoors and there's never been a weather issue. So I'm sitting here like, how the hell are they going to wrestle? What's going to happen? And for a minute, I thought they were going to either postpone it or not cancel it, but just whatever. But then I was starting to think, I'm like, this is Vince McMahon. A nuclear bomb could be going off down the street, and he's gonna make sure that the show happens.
Yeah.
And I think by the time everybody got into their seats and everybody sat down, like nobody cared that it was raining. Like we were sitting ringside, and there was these tarps on top of the ring to keep the ring dry. And they're all kind of filling up with little water bubbles on the side of it. And every 5 minutes, it was like, you can't do that on television on Nickelodeon. Where just like dumps of water are just falling on random people, saying like, I don't know, and it splashed like all over them. And nobody cared. Nobody gave a damn at all. Like they were just happy to be outside, happy to have a little bit of sense of normalcy. And I think I had the same sort of feeling. Night two, however, felt a little bit more like a return,
Yeah.
Obviously I was there with Wale, and he was performing Big E's entrance, and we had the Foot Locker thing, and we did a couple appearances, and we linked with E, and obviously they've been working on this song for a long time, and usually there'd be a rehearsal, right? But if you remember that day, there was like monsoons in Tampa Bay the whole day. So we couldn't even get to the stage to rehearse before fans got into the stadium. And so nobody knew what to do. I mean, like we knew, like as far as like music cues, I went to the truck and be like, hey, come out on this part and that part. And then after like 5 minutes of talking with, the producers and talking with, the TV guys and talking with Ian, talking with Wale, I'm like, oh my God, I'm back at work again. I'm producing the segment. No, I'm producing the segment now. So I'm like, all right, I'm like, E, you come out on the beat drop, and then Wale, like once you say doing it big, and then the fireworks gonna hit and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like,
am I producing the entrance right now? Like,
yeah, man, that's what it felt like, right? So I'm in Gorilla, Vince is there, Triple H is there, everybody who's there is supposed to be there is there. I think Sheamus and Riddle had just finished, and Sheamus tore it down. I think it was a crazy finish. I think it was a bro kick off that backflip or whatever.
Dude, it was the most beautifully timed brogue kick I've ever seen in my life.
And he came in pumped, right? Like, and I started getting the flashbacks. Like when you hit something, like when there's those moments, I've been in Gorilla and backstage for those moments when the guys come out the curtain and they're fired up and they know they did something special, and they did that. So now I'm like, oh my God, what if they don't? I mean, it's a musical performance. Like, they could be totally off this and not be really with it. But I think the 7 years that Wale has really put in to the wrestling business, I mean, to the public's eyes, right? Like he's been a lifelong wrestling fan, but I think the 7 years of Wale Mania and the moments that we've kind of helped produce during WrestleMania weekend really helped, because as soon as Greg Hamilton gave that money intro for him and the crowd cheered, which you never really know, the crowd cheered, and then they did the first verse, and as soon as E came out and the fireworks hit, I got those chill bumps I used to get when I was being Gorilla, when I'm like, okay, we got one. Like the crowd's into it, everybody's going crazy, like the commentators are feeling it, like everything was hitting on the money. And man, it was an incredible experience. It was really, really fun to kind of be back there again and feel that energy from everybody. And to make it even more full circle than that, the first WrestleMania me, Wale, and Emilio went to was down in 31 for San Jose. And I think that Saturday we went to an indie show down in like some barn, like not like in San Jose or whatever. And people on the card were Apollo Crews, Ricochet, Rich Swann, but Apollo was the guy, he was the main guy over there. And we took a picture. And then, 7 years later, like we're all kind of like going through the match, and we're all it's me, Wale, eating and Uha. And we're just looking at each other like, can you fucking believe this? Like,
crazy.
We have to do this, So like, it was really special, man. Apollo and Wale's relationship, I don't know if anybody knows, but like it was Wale who got Mark Henry's attention with Uha / Apollo Crews to even get him signed, and to see the years that Apollo's kind of gone through, sort of finding himself, and then finding himself recently and having that big WrestleMania moment and winning the Intercontinental Championship on top of escorting Big E to the ring. It was like, it's okay if we didn't have Wale Mania this year. This made up for it. This more than made up for it.
and the thing with Wale that, I mean, I know because I've known you guys for so long, is that people, they know he's a big fan, right? But they just kind of lump him in there like, yeah, he's a celebrity who's a big fan, so WWE gives him a call, and it's just that easy. But like, man,
it's really not,
bro. Like, I know literally for years having conversations with Wale of being like, man, I don't know why WWE doesn't respond to this, or I don't know why they don't get what I'm doing here. I don't know why.
We used to buy our own tickets. We used to buy our own tickets. Like we used to buy our own front row tickets to go to every show on some Spike Lee shit just to be there.
And this is like, this is not like before Wale was famous already.
Dude, the first Mania we went to, he drops an album with Jerry Seinfeld that week. And he's like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to pay for my tickets. And I'm sure we could have made a few calls and got some tickets and been somewhere. But he was like, no, I'm a fan. I want to be front row. I want to feel the action. I want everything to be involved with it. So it's like, no, like Wale's, this wasn't recent. Like we've been working for this for a very, very long time. And the relationship between Hunter and Wale and myself and and Neil, who does all the WWE music, and even Vince now at this point, and Stephanie, they're so appreciative, and it's like a complete 180 from, do these people even know we exist and why it's important, to oh man, like this is, now he almost feels like part of the family. Like he goes backstage, everybody knows him, everybody says what's up, it's all love. A lot of these guys he's seen at indie shows before they even signed to WWE, so they know he's legit.
Right.
And it's, and like you said, Sam, you were there. Like we would have these combos with you, and they were like, we don't know why they won't like kind of let us be involved. So
I mean,
it's all full circle, man.
I think I posted a picture. It was me, Rosenberg, and Wale. And we were at the Hammerstein Ballroom TNA Impact shows. Like that's the level that, like,
yes,
it's the real deal. So coming off of WrestleMania and coming off of that high and everything, and just, what did you think about the shows after Mania? Raw, NXT, SmackDown.
Well, I mean, the commentators, you know what I mean? Like I thought, I'm a big fan of Pat McAfee and what he's doing on SmackDown. So I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Adnan Virk addition to commentary is a choice, and I think it's gonna make. I think they're really going more for like the sports and the sports entertainment recently.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of dig that choice or whatever, but. Raw was cool. I mean, obviously it's not the typical Raw after WrestleManias we're used to, with the fans pretty much being with the show being pretty much being like a fan appreciation night type of show.
Yeah.
Where they just kind of let the fans just take over, and we get the big pops for the returns, and nothing of real consequence happens unless like, somebody cashes Money in the Bank or whatever. It's
or
like,
a return or something. Yeah.
Whatever didn't happen at WrestleMania, we will make sure you guys are satisfied on Raw or either SmackDown.
Yeah.
So outside of like Charlotte's return and a couple of other things that happened, I think it was just, it was another Raw. I think obviously if you didn't realize how big of a change the shows are with fans in the crowd, you knew that very next week. Once it was back to Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, it's like, oh man, I really miss watching crowds in there, right back to it.
Yeah. This is how we do this. Yeah. I was I was watching going like, okay, we're just back to it. And part of me feels like, okay, and I don't know anything about any, inside source on what their touring outlook looks like. But, I have eyes. I can look at the world around me, and I can look at people getting vaccines, and I can look at musicians selling concert tickets, and I can look at how things are moving. And it feels like it's not going to be that long before we're able to take TV on the road again, before we're able to be in front of live crowds again. And so part of me feels like, okay, like it wasn't really a Raw after WrestleMania. It was just a Raw that was after WrestleMania, right? It was just like, that's just where we're at. But I wondered if maybe some of the sort of bigger drops that we would usually get on the Raw after Mania, maybe that's being saved because hopefully by SummerSlam, say I would think by the end of August, we'll be back in front of people again, and maybe some of those bigger moments, a Becky Lynch return, a Ronda Rousey return, a Brock Lesnar return, whoever's coming out, maybe some NXT call-ups. Maybe they're thinking, why don't we hedge our bets here? Let's go with what we've got. It's only a couple of months, and let's hit them once the crowds are back.
And honestly, I'm glad they stuck to it. I'm glad it wasn't, I'm glad WrestleMania wasn't littered with a bunch of big returns or surprise pops or big, reveals or anything like that. I'm glad both shows felt like they were payoffs to at least 6 months to year-long storylines, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the people, I mean, outside of Bayley, and even though Bayley did get a pretty good showcase with a bunch of legends, this WrestleMania really felt like, thanks for holding us down during a tough time, right?
It's a celebration.
Drew got his moment. Bobby got his moment. Sasha and Bianca, obviously the main event with Roman, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. Like, these were the people we've been following for the past year when we very easily could have been like, you know what? No fans, I'm good.
Yeah.
And they held it down. They kept our attention. Each match felt important. But yeah, like I got my eye on SummerSlam. I think by the time we hit August, the time it's the second biggest show, I'm assuming they're not going across the pond to do any big stadium shows or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got my eyes on SummerSlam, man. I think right around that time, we should have a couple of those big moments. And you know what? It's gonna make those moments even better because now you've established that Bianca Belair is a main event player. Bobby Lashley is a main event player. Drew McIntyre are main event players. And Roman, I mean, obviously they already are. But now you got better and more fun toys to play with for Becky Lynch when she comes back, for Brock Lesnar when he comes back, for a lot of these people, for the NXT call-ups, maybe Adam Cole, maybe, some guys from the Undisputed Era. It's always a good time to be a wrestling fan around the spring and the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes in the fall or winter, you can kind of fall off. There's football going on, there's basketball, there's all these other things happen. But spring to summer is the nice little sweet spot right there. So I'm hoping it stays that way.
Yeah, because when you think about Becky, like literally the whole world's changed since Becky was gone. Like Becky's coming back, and you've got Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley on the top of the mountain who weren't even in the conversation as far as the main roster goes when Becky left. And even for Brock, what was once a reach, like it was once yeah, I guess on paper I could see where that would be cool, but I have no idea how we get there. Now, the Lashley-Lesnar match is almost like it's a no-brainer. It's like, of course that's where we're going to go. And we were nowhere near that a year ago when Brock left.
Yeah. And you got to give the old man credit, man. Like there's so many times I'm like, why hasn't this match been done? Times when I was over there, I'm like, why hasn't this match been done? Why not? You got to give the old man credit if you're going to give him as much criticism as possible, because now Bobby Lashley is an attraction. Bobby Lashley is a guy. They've given the spit shine to him. They've done a complete revamp of his entire presentation. And now when Brock Lesnar comes back, I'm not so sure Brock Lesnar just beats him. If Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley took on each other 2 years ago, I'm like, it's a good look for Bobby, but obviously he's not going to beat Brock Lesnar. Now,
well,
not so sure.
Yeah.
Not so sure. Yeah. I didn't think I told MVP this after WrestleMania. I was like, I was so pleasantly surprised that you guys retained, because I would have bet my pinky toe that Drew was going over. And I was pleasantly surprised. It's like, okay, it's rare. I mean, you're obviously the biggest wrestling historian I know, or one of them. It's rare that somebody goes into WrestleMania the WWE champion and walks out the WWE champion. And no matter how you slice it, no matter where that match was put on the card, even if it was an opener, that is a historic place to be for Bobby Lashley. You are a made guy now.
Especially when Bobby's going in a heel, and especially the way he retained. Like, people want to say,
put him to sleep.
I know. Like, people want to go like, well, MVP distracted him. I'm like, that's the weakest distraction that I've ever seen in my life. I watched that match, and I said, there is no way. We're staying in canon. There is no way.
I didn't even notice it. I didn't even notice it live. Like, if you're there watching it live, you don't even notice I had to go and watch the replay on Peacock, and it was the quick hesitation. I was like, oh, that's what caused it. But
that's more of that's Drew making a mistake and getting distracted.
Exactly.
That's Drew. Like, I left going like, okay, as a wrestling fan in this world, Bobby Lashley's a better wrestler than Drew McIntyre. Period.
Yeah.
Like tonight, he wasn't that night. I don't know if
you could catch him. You could catch somebody on the schoolboy. You could catch somebody on the quick pin. When you put him out,
yes.
Ooh, yeah,
yes,
you're a made dude.
Yes. I don't know how deep you were able to keep your eyes on NXT, like with the 2-day takeover going into NXT TV on Tuesday. But man, first of all, I think that Takeover came back in a big way. The last one, I don't remember if it was Vengeance Day or what. Like the last Takeover before this one, it was for the first time in a while. I was like, I'm starting to feel like this is Takeover again. Like this is cool.
Yeah.
And then I got that feeling again this last one at Takeover Stand and Deliver with the 2-day takeover. But I think it's even more important is that it feels like they decided, okay, now's the time to pull the trigger and just introduce, this is a new cycle. We've got a new champion. We've got a new women's champion. These are people that you might not have expected to hold that gold to start with. You know, you still got Gargano over here. You know, we're sitting here putting Walter over Ciampa. Like, this is not a brand that's afraid to shake things up. And I think that they had a really strong showing especially with the Tuesday show. I thought that out of the 3 shows, as an after WrestleMania show, as that sort of kickoff to the new season show, I thought NXT had the best of the 3.
Yeah, I thought the moment between Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Raquel Gonzalez was so well done. They rarely get those moments on NXT, and it felt like graduation. It felt like the kids coming back to campus and being like, "Hey, we did it, we made it," and that was really tight. But you mentioned it, man. Like, obviously, the one thing that makes NXT takeovers so different from other pay-per-views is the fan experience there, right? I always said, if you like entertainment, pay-per-views are always your go-to. And for a long time, I mean, you've been there for a long time, the NXT takeovers that happen the weekends of WrestleMania have usually been better than WrestleMania. Right?
Yeah.
So on top of that, it's like, okay, well, now you're doing it for 2 nights. You don't have as much. You have a little bit of it, but you don't have as much of that rabid NXT fan base that really separates that from the main roster Raw and SmackDown products. But I thought it was so well done. I mean, I'm such a fan of Io Shirai, and like every time she goes out there, she does something that makes me go. If you see her walking down the street, I don't think you realize how much of a badass that is just walking in there, right?
Yeah.
And every time the lights go on and it's a main event show, she shows you exactly why she's a badass. On top of that, man, I mean, the Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly storyline was told so well. It made sense. I didn't want any of those guys to lose, but the right person, won at the end. And like you said, nice fresh coat of paint for everything, right? Like, even though it's a different year, things have been very, shaken up in certain ways. I almost felt like since NXT came onto network television, that call-up moments don't really happen anymore, right? Like, it almost feels like, no, NXT is legitimately a third brand. So Gargano's going to be here. Ciampa's going to be there. Cole and these guys are going to be there. But now I'm not so sure, right? Like, now it's like, okay, well, Karrion Kross it's going to be a new era of him being the champ. I don't know what's going to be made of Finn Balor. I don't know if he goes to the UK and takes on Walter. That's what I want to see. You got a new women's champion with a ton. I mean, the NXT women's division, we could spend a whole hour on that, just how deep that thing is. But I mean, even the mid card, like, I'm a big fan of Bronson Reed. I thought Bronson Reed had a great showing.
Great.
I've been singing the praises of Isaiah Swerve Scott for a long time, and I think he's really getting into his character really well. Leon Ruff, obviously, love that guy. And even Dexter Luke, like, everything is you could tell the health of a show by its mid card, right?
Yeah,
if
Cameron
mid-card
Grimes
is healthy.
We didn't mention Cameron Grimes.
Cameron Grimes,
Come
like
on.
that dude. He's ready. He's ready. Like, if they need him on Raw, SmackDown tomorrow, like, he would be money to excuse the pun or whatever. But I think with NXT, man, I love that they moved to Tuesdays. I love that they got their own time to shine. It's really hard to really get involved with each and every show when you're flipping back and forth. And I think they really took advantage of that. So, like I said, you could tell the health of a good show by how good its mid-card is. And the mid-card, if you got Walter doing, mid-card matches, you know what I mean? Like, you got a pretty healthy program on your hands. So I thought it was dope.
I mean, the world. For me, I'm going, look, I don't care. Walter says he's not moving to the States. Walter says he's staying in the UK. Walter can say whatever he wants. I think it's a matter of time before Vince sees Walter in the right match and just whatever money Walter needs to come to the States. There is no way in my mind that Walter does not end up on the main roster soon.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who will ask me, I'm like, the best match I saw all year last year was Walter versus Dragunov.
Yeah.
On NXT UK. Just brutality at its finest. And Vince loves a big ugly guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does.
Vince loves a big dude who just looks like he could hurt you and you don't want to walk into in a dark alley. And Walter checks all the boxes, man. Like, the longer he's the champ, the longer he holds that NXT gold, the more prestige that title gets. And the more prestige that title gets, the more prestige that brand gets. And you could only hold this guy overseas so long before Vince is like, I want to see him and Bobby Lashley. I want to see him and Brock Lesnar. I want to see him and Drew McIntyre. I want to see him with Finn Balor.
I mean, how about Walter versus Sheamus? Like, I think Sheamus is underrated. Like, I don't think people realize what an ass kicker Sheamus is. Like, Sheamus throws down, and if you like brutality, a Walter versus Sheamus match would be insane.
Yes, Sheamus. I don't know if people have been watching a lot of Sheamus matches on Raw lately, especially against Matt Riddle.
Yes.
But he's been having some absolute bangers on Raw lately. And you nailed it, man. Like, Sheamus is a guy who people don't really like say first when they talk about guys with like great matches and great work rate, whatever the hell people use. But I mean, he's a guy who I'm like, I want to see him just beat the snot out of somebody and get the snot beat out of him by. Yeah. And I want to see it. I want to see Walter on Monday Night Raw one day and just show up with the hands behind his back and just super gentlemanly beating the crap out of people. I'm all the way for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the moving to the 2-day thing, the Tuesday and Wednesday separation. I thought it was really interesting. So ratings for both shows went up. I mean, I thought AEW's ratings were crazy this week. I don't know if you check like the ratings. I don't pay too much attention to them because I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not.
Well, they cracked the million.
TV, but yeah, 1.2 million is a crazy number. But NXT doing 800,000 is also pretty amazing for a wrestling show that wasn't getting 800,000 every week on a new night. Like, people having to retrain to go to Tuesday. So both shows were really successful. But I feel two ways about it. I feel like this first week, it's tough to say exactly how things are going to go because, like, I was excited. Like, I was really happy that NXT was on in its own space and you can just kind of sit and enjoy it. But this was really, since it came out, like, because, you know, I'm an NXT fan. I've been an NXT fan for the longest. So, like, that's why I don't bring up a lot of AEW on the podcast, because I can't critique it or compliment it properly because I've watched, 15 minutes of the show jumping back and forth or whatever. It's not really fair. But, like, this week was one of the first weeks, I think, that I really, like, sat down without being terribly distracted and got to watch Dynamite. And I was like, this is nice. This is a good, this is fun. Like, I don't know, but here's my hang up. And this is something a lot of people aren't bringing up because they're saying, well, you'll take their numbers and they'll get them separately and both numbers will go up. And I'm like, yeah, but what about when fatigue starts to set in? Do you think that there's a concern here when you're going like Monday, Raw, Tuesday, NXT, Wednesday, Dynamite, take a breath on Thursday, maybe watch Impact if you're feeling it, and then Friday you're back to SmackDown? Like, I wonder if it won't eventually potentially hurt both shows, that there's just a lot of people that don't want to watch wrestling every single night.
I mean, if you scroll through the podcast comments of the Masked Man Show, the YouTube comments, they say the same thing. It's like, you guys just talk about NXT. You never mention AEW. And it's like, well, I don't want to disrespect AEW because it's on a Wednesday. And if I have a whole big bloviating opinion on something that I've only kind of watched,
right,
you'll hate me for it. And it's like, all right, like, I know this is weird. I'm not going to comment on things that I don't watch because a lot of people do that. But I think it's different. I think wrestling is in such a healthy space right now, despite the fact that we're still technically in a pandemic, that I don't think anybody's really going to suffer in the long run. I mean, like, if you could say any brand can afford to, I don't know, lose a few viewers or just kind of like not be as popping as something else, NXT obviously doesn't. I think the pressure's off NXT now, right? Like, I feel like on Wednesdays it was, oh my God, just the NXT versus AEW war. And clearly Dynamite is their Monday Night Raw. Like, they're not pulling punches on that show. Yeah. Where clearly NXT there's a pecking order in WWE, and NXT, as much as I love it, as much as the fans love it, it's not going to get the same love and attention as Raw and SmackDown or pay-per-views are going to get. That's just the fact of life. But now that, you got Monday Raw, Tuesday NXT, Wednesday at Dynamite, Thursday Impact, Friday SmackDown. I just believe that wrestling's just in a healthy place. And even if they aren't doing crazy 1998 numbers on the ratings or whatever, and that's not happening for anytime soon, I still think we're going to get more moments and more stars that are being born during this era than ever, because there's never been this much wrestling on at one time, you know? Like, I mean, I'm sure there has been, but not on major networks, not having prime time availability every single night. Every night of the week, you can watch some world-class professional wrestling, no matter what you're into. You know what I mean? So I think obviously AEW benefits the most because now they're unopposed. They usually have great lead-ins, whether it's, you know, NBA on TNT or something like an Avengers movie or something like that. They're always gonna have a great lead-in right into their show. So even if you're not you or me, like big wrestling guys, they'll catch a few casuals here and there, like, oh snap, Shaq's here, Snoop's here, Chris Jericho, Cody, I know these people. Okay, I'll watch, you know. And with NXT, I still think NXT remains, it keeps its charm as this, you know, wrestling fans wrestling show, where it's just like, it's bare bones, it's in a dark arena, lights are down, you're going to see a whole lot of action, not a ton of promos. And, you know, it continues to have, and the pressure's off of it to outshine AEW Dynamite, which is working with a different budget, a different level of talent, different level of eyeballs. Like, it's just, you know, it's just easier. So I'm enjoying it. I think it's good.
I think it's really interesting because I think the strategy in NXT has always been, we're just going to concentrate on what we're doing and try to put out the best show. But it's really tough to do that when the whole world is comparing you. Like, it's just you're constant. There's a bombardment of comparison coming your way. And you're right. When you don't have that comparison, now it's almost like people will leave you alone to just create the best wrestling show that you can create. And when NXT is left alone to create the best wrestling show that they can create, they could be dangerous, man. They could be really dangerous as far as creating.
NXT is like Stephen Curry right now, right? Like when Steph Curry was on the Warriors with KD and everybody was just like, oh God, they're going to win 80 games a year, win championships, all that type of stuff. Well, now that pressure's off. And now we can just enjoy Stephen Curry for the great Stephen Curryness, like the best shooter we've ever seen. Even if they lose games, who cares? It's like, wow, this is really great to watch. And I feel like NXT is like that. It's like, okay, so what? They don't crack 1 million viewers every Tuesday night. I still get to see like Johnny Gargano, Dexter Lumis, Leon Ruff, Io Shirai, like these great people that I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
That, you know, what's the guy? Santos Escobar.
Oh my God,
I mean?
dude!
Like,
I had this revelation watching Takeover.
Like,
I can't believe that in my 30s I'm still having these moments, because I remember having these moments as a kid, and it's the exact same moment where I knew I loved this guy, right? Yeah. And I've made no secret about it. And I'm watching this ladder match, and I go, "Oh my God, he's my favorite wrestler!" Like, it's like you have this moment where you're like, "That's my favorite wrestler."
Ever since that first reveal, when, you know, I forgot what name he was going by in the cruiserweight.
Phantasma,
the Phantasma, whatever. And the whole reveal and the whole like reason for the reveal, I was immediately intrigued.
Dude, and it's so funny. I'm so glad you brought up that reveal, because I remember that moment, because like I was in my sort of smart mark, you know, it's like, why do they got this guy back in a mask? When they showed the PC recruitments, he wasn't wearing his mask in his picture, and now they put the mask back on. Who's running this show? And it's like, hey, Mark, why don't you just let this show play itself out?
Let the pros do the show stuff. Let them handle it.
Sorry. And he takes the thing off, and I thought his entrance at TakeOver was spectacular when he brought the thing down and then he pulled the mask off, and he's just so good. And I don't know if you saw the press conference that they did before that TakeOver, where Santos was cutting his promo, and Raquel did the same thing. They were both cutting promos in Spanish and in English, and it's like, it's lethal. It's so good.
And honestly, I hate to bring this up negatively, because I'm a mega fan of this dude. When I was working there, I was like begging to get him on TV because I was just a big fan of his work. But that's the difference between Andrade and Santos. Like, you got to be able to, you know, that English speaking barrier is big. I mean, obviously, incredible in-ring talent, undeniable in-ring talent, right? But Escobar could cut a promo just as good as English as he can in Spanish. And on top of that, he's got I'm glad he had that run with the cruiserweight title. Now he can go on to bigger and better things. I think he could have another blow off of Kushida and let Kushida kind of run it and hold it down for as long as he can. That dude is ready for, they already kind of teased it. They kind of already toyed around with it with Karrion Kross and Santos a little bit, but eventually I think that's the money match right there.
I mean,
eventually.
Think about how differently and Leo Rush had a great run with the cruiserweight title. I would give Leo Rush credit for kind of bringing that title back into the fold. Yeah, me too. I think he's the best. Mm-hmm. But think about that championship, the cruiserweight championship. Think about where that title was when Santos won it versus where it is today. Think about the fact that his run, I think, it's been his run that's made that on the same a top tier title, on the same tier as the North American Championship. Like, it's not looked at as this sort of prop championship for like 205 guys.
It got stripped when with the whole Enzo situation. Like, it was in a great space. Like, and this is after, the Cruiserweight Classic, which, in all accounts, you go back and look at the people in the Cruiserweight Classic, like, oh my God, how did they even pull this off?
Right.
You know what I mean? And, that was a hot title for a while. And now, they had the tournament, which was dope. And it's not just, okay, here's a time to get the high flyers over or whatever, like, or the smaller guys or whatever. Like, it was and it's always been a great title to have. I mean, I think the Cedric Alexander-Mustafa Ali match was a banger at WrestleMania. I love when Buddy Murphy was holding it down. But, you got to have a certain star power when you're holding a title, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody says it. The title doesn't make the man makes the title. And, Santos absolutely has made that title feel important. And I think now that's all the proof you need that guy could be at the top of NXT at the top of a hat.
Yeah.
And I hope it happens soon. Not terribly soon, but I hope they work their way to it.
A nice build. I mean, it'd be cool to have him be the one that finally takes the North American Championship off Gargano. Like, wouldn't it be nice to have that kind of old school build where he spends all his time as the Cruiserweight champion? Then he spends like a solid 8-10 months as North American champion. And then we slowly get him into this place where it's like, you get him to undeniable. Not, I think this could work, or, that might be cool. It's just like where everyone can feel that he doesn't have the belt yet, but that guy's the champion.
It's the Shawn Michaels build, right?
Yes.
Like, remember back in the day? Where it was like, okay, he's the tag team champion. And then it was like, okay, he was the heel once kind of champion, and he gets hurt, comes back, wins it in the blue tights.
Oh, yeah.
And even though he's not the world champion, everyone's like, this is the dude, you know what I mean? So, like, I hope we don't have builds like that anymore. I mean, we have them, but they don't burn as slow. Like, we kind of we're very give it to me now sort of culture, and I think that drips into our wrestling a little bit. Man, it's one of two things in WWE now. They either wait until 15 years to finally give you a title run, or they give it to you right away. There's no nice in between anymore.
I think that was my observation after like the Big E documentary that they did on the network, where they were talking about how long this guy has worked and the span of time. It was like 9 years or whatever it was between his Intercontinental Championship runs. And I'm starting to sit there and I'm thinking there and like, okay, and I remember the Kofi doc. And I remember the Drew doc, and I'm like, this shouldn't be the story. Why does it take a decade or more to get these guys to where they need to be?
I feel you on that. It's like, I know this is supposed to be a feel-good moment, but it's like, God damn, like, like, these guys are clearly talented, and obviously, situations are called for whoever, whatever, and, depending on who's at the top and like what story is being told, I'm sure things get drug out. But I miss a nice old school build where you just kind of, back in the day when you play wrestling video games, don't jump right into the world title storyline. You gotta win the tag team with a tag team guy, then you gotta win the Intercontinental title or the European title back in the day. And then you get to mess with the big boys. So I'm a big, all that to say, big stock on buying big stock on Santos Escobar, man. Like, especially with, and I hate to make this a Latin, star or a Spanish star thing, but like, especially with the big loss of Andrade, you're gonna need a guy like that. It's just the facts, especially with how much lucha libre and Mexican wrestling is, sprinkled in everywhere right now. You're gonna need a guy like him to eventually carry that torch.
Where do you want to see Andrade? Because I'm also a tremendous Andrade fan. Like, I love Andrade. I loved him in NXT. I'm just a big Andrade fan, especially with Zelina Vega. Like that act together when they broke up. And what's his name? I'm blanking on his name now, but with the tearaway pants. He hasn't been on TV for.
I know you're talking about Angel Garza.
Angel Garza is I'm sitting there and I'm like, how could this guy not be on TV every week? The only reason I spaced on his name is because he's never on TV anymore. But I'm like, Angel Garza is so good. And bro, the tearaway pants gimmick where he's tearing his pants away mid-match. It's as
so
good
old
as it
school,
gets.
but it works.
It's so good because it's like I've never seen. It's like you tear away your pants before the match, and it's like here's the big reveal.
It's like that jerk in his pants.
Yeah,
he's so handsome.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but just the idea, like I'm heating up, and just when you hit that pinnacle, goodbye pants. And I'm like, this is genius. No, man, I love it. But the fact that Zelina Vega and Andrade are both gone at the same time, I would think that whatever company picks one of them up should pick up the other one. I mean, I think that act should be back together.
They were a money act.
It was a
big
money act. Where would you like to see them? I mean, I'll tell you my perspective. AEW has a lot of people on the roster. I mean, and I know they got YouTube shows and stuff like that, but realistically, 2 hours of TV, one pay-per-view every 2 or 3 months. Like, you can't be having TV shows where there's 75 wrestlers on it and think anybody's going to get over except the top tier guys. So, when I look and, the releases that we found out about this week, when I look at these releases, I'm not of the... I mean, look at Rusev. Rusev... I would have thought would have gone and main evented somewhere, but just because, and maybe he still will at some point in AEW, but just because of the amount of people, it becomes a very difficult thing to do. So for me, I think that, and I don't know what the financial status of Ring of Honor is, and maybe it's just because I love the golden age of Ring of Honor so much, and I like Ring of Honor when it was the spot that I guess. For me, it starts with kind of the Punk Joe era and ends with the Undisputed Era guys. That length of time for me is just magic. And you can see, I mean, we had Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn on night 2. We had Seth Rollins versus Cesaro on night 1. I could have seen those matches at the Hammerstein in Ring of Honor rings like that.
That was I think that was the first indie show I ever went to. Was it Best in the World?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It was I think it was the Kings of Wrestling versus the World's Greatest Tag Team, and I think the main event was Eddie Edwards versus Davey Richards, and it was Chris Hero who invited me and Sparks over. And Kevin Steen was still doing his gimmick where he was kicked out of the company and he was coming and taking stuff over and running. And I had never been to an indie show. I mean, I don't really count Ring of Honor as an indie, but I hadn't gone to a wrestling show that wasn't Impact or WWE at that time. And I saw that match and I'm just like, I love every single one of these guys. This is the best wrestling happening. Why isn't this on main television? And then slowly but surely, you would see them all kind of make that move. I think Sammy was the first one to make that jump. And then Owens, and then Cesaro, and then it was just little by little, it was all these guys. I'm like, man, I saw all these guys at the Hammerstein.
Yeah.
So I think you were getting to your point of wanting to see Andrade in Ring of Honor. Is that what you're getting to?
That's what I'd like to see. I mean, Rush is already there. I would love to see Andrade in Ring of Honor and to come out with Zelina Vega. I think adding a little bit of star power into Ring of Honor. Not every star should go, but a little bit of star power from guys that can really go at a top level. Not really that. I mean, most of the people once you get to WWE, like if you've gotten to the point where you're good enough to get released by WWE, you can go at a top level. Like, so I shouldn't even. But like, yeah, I think that Andrade stepping into Ring of Honor, because look, Ring of Honor got hurt really badly when all the Bullet Club guys left.
Yes.
And started AEW. So like, I think that they're in need of a refresh. They got Dalton Castle. They still have the Briscoes. Like there is
EC3's over there too.
Yeah, EC3 just showed up over there. I think that there's a lot of potential over there and a lot of talent. And if there is, what do we know about the finances of any company? But if there is money to bring in some of these people, I mean, can you imagine? Not only if Andrade goes over there full time, but can you imagine, dude, if Samoa Joe showed up to a Ring of Honor show? Like, can you? Maybe I'm just setting myself up to get disappointed. But can you imagine if in 2021, Ring of Honor does their first show back in front of an audience, and here comes Joe? Oh,
honestly, I don't want to say. You want to set yourself up for failure? I'm going to set myself up even more. Saw CM Punk tweet. Anything can happen.
I saw
as
it
far
too.
as
I saw
you talk about a company that really needs that. You just talked about the golden era of Punk Joe up until WrestleMania right now. You talking about, like, listen, if I'm running Ring of Honor, I go to CM Punk, I go to Samoa Joe, and I'm like, yo, I will give you equity in this company. like whatever we make out of this is yours. Like you can do, like, whoever's bankrolling this, I don't know if it's still Sinclair or whoever's still kind of like running Ring of Honor. You have a golden opportunity in your hands. I don't know how much money you guys have, but you do have equity. You do have name recognition. You do have the fact that pro wrestling is everywhere right now. You still have Fight TV. You still have a lot of opportunities. It is not, I'm not a business guy. I've never ran a promotion before, but I think you get more chews of the apple having these stars look at Ring of Honor and being like, we can go and bring this thing back. Like I think there's been like a reshuffling of the American territories for a while. AEW shot up to a solid number 2. Impact is there. You got the US version of New Japan. As selfishly as I would love to see Kota Ibushi and Andrade like tear it down in Tokyo Dome or New Japan or whatever, I still truly believe that I think Ring of Honor could really use a lot of this talent that was let go.
Yeah.
And, AEW, again, would probably be so easy to, I'm sure there's more money to be made. I'm sure there's more exposure and all that type of stuff. But you said it, man. Like, they have a lot of people on that show. Like, I can't, like I remember when Pac/Neville was like the big get when they first started, and now it's just like, okay, he's there sometimes, and I remember, like, Miro, I love Miro. Rusev is awesome, love him. I thought he would have been their Brock Lesnar, just come and steamroll everybody, take the title, and come get me, right? And he's not quite there yet. But at the end of the day, and like I told anybody who's ever talked to me about wrestling after working there, as a fan, there's only 12 segments on the show, bro.
Yeah,
there's only 12 segments on the show. How many people do you really think could get on TV at that time, man? And dreaming a little dream in a perfect world. Punk, Joe, go to Ring of Honor, bring that thing back, bring the prestige back to that name, and now you're in a real new golden age of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I think, because I'm the same way with you. Like, I'm sitting there going, like, why don't you just make Eddie Kingston AEW champion already? He's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
What are we waiting for?
What are we doing? And it's like, well, there's 80 other people on the Raw, and you're like, I guess, it seems, you're right. It seems complicated. But yeah, I mean, if at Ring of Honor, here would be my plan to kind of feasibly pull this off. If it was just like, look, we're going to build a card that is a display of what Ring of Honor is going to look like going forward. At the top of that card, just as a thing, here's the Ring of Honor card, and also, we want to do one more CM Punk versus Samoa Joe match. We'll give you a cut of the pay-per-view. We'll give you equity in the company. We'll give you whatever you want.
Take everything. Take everything.
You can have the company.
Whatever money you make on that show, whatever
Yours.
money you lose from giving Joe and Punk that money,
you
will make back in equity and wrestling fandom and just buzz. Like, people don't like to put a number value on buzz, but it's like Ring of Honor simply is lacking that right now. And if there's any wrestling situation that makes sense to see CM Punk come back, you kind of tell he's got the itch. You can tell
absolutely.
You can tell he's got the itch, right? Like, and I'm not sure WWE is going to come calling quite yet. I think they tried it with AEW, and I don't know the guy personally, but I feel like there was a miscommunication with Punk and AEW, and I don't think that's going to happen either.
Yeah, Mike, that's my gut too. I feel the same way that you do. And I mean, I know him a little bit, but I don't text him. I wouldn't call him up and be like, hey, what are you feeling about this? But I watch his interviews. I just interviewed him, on the radio last week to promote his movie. And like, my gut feeling, and I don't know, we could both be 100% wrong, but my gut feeling is that there's just something about I don't think he wants to do AEW. I think that if he wanted to do AEW, they would have given him all the money and he would have done it already. But I mean, and I still see CM Punk back in a WWE ring at some point, even if it's just for a match, even if it's just, I think it will probably at one point happen. But I could also see, because I agree with you, I think he's got an itch. I think he talks about wrestling again like he used to. You know what I mean? Like, he's not so turned off. And he's gotten the opportunity to do what he wanted to do. He's gotten the opportunity to be away from the system. He's gotten the opportunity to fight MMA. He's gotten the opportunity to be in movies. Like, he's gotten these things that he wanted to do in his life, and he did them, and all. And
in perfect pro wrestling fashion, like, it's always going to be there. Like, it doesn't matter how far away you go from wrestling. It doesn't matter how long you're gone. It will always be there for you when you come back, when you're ready.
Yeah, it's not like CM Punk and Samoa Joe have to come in and be full-time Ring of Honor guys. Literally one match.
One match, and I'm good.
One match. If I told you, Kaz, $50, same thing you paid for that Triller card, $50, which I would have paid more. $50.
Listen, I would have gave him $80 for that catastrophe.
It was incredible.
It was great. I was very sports entertained.
I'll be there next time. You better believe I'll be there next time. But if I told you $60, Fight TV, easy to order, Ring of Honor, dawning of a new era, whatever you want to call the show, 4-hour pay-per-view, 3.5 is all, here's what Ring of Honor is, and then boom, here's your main event, one more time in a lifetime, CM Punk versus Samoa Joe. What wrestling fan isn't buying that pay-per-view?
Every wrestling fan's buying that.
All of them.
Ring of Honor is like the, I don't know what to really compare it to, but it's almost like that first Impact crossover with AEW, where like you got AEW fanboys and you got WWE fanboys. Like, nobody hates Impact. Right? Like, they'll be like, all right, I don't watch the show, but I don't hate it.
Yeah,
it's like the Ring of Honor. Like, nobody's like staunchly against the Ring of Honor. So they have like the awesome opportunity to bring in all of these fans from all these walks of life. WWE fans are going to tune in. AEW fans are going to tune in. Casuals are going to tune in. Everybody's going to watch this match.
I mean, let's be honest. Half the AEW roster would be angling to get on the show.
Oh, well,
Tony, it's just a one-off for Ring of Honor. It'll be great.
It could be like another All In. It could be like another All In where it's just like, it's just a one-off show. We're doing it for the sake of we're kicking open another forbidden door.
That's all it is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how dope would that be? You got a couple AEW guys come through. You got Seth Rollins coming at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Collar Black.
And by the way, Ring of Honor squashes all of them. Ring of Honor puts their guys over everybody. Everybody. Pierre Ouellet just jobs. Everybody jobs to Quebec or Pierre. Everybody. PCO beats everybody.
You got EC3 just cutting promos on how everyone's wasted their life and they don't control their own narrative.
Yeah.
It just rips every major promotion. I'm just like, yeah, I'm paying to see this. I'll watch that.
I'll be there. Well, Kaz, I love talking wrestling with you. But you're an entertaining guy to hear talk about a lot of stuff, and people can hear that on Say Less with Kaz all the time. You can follow Kaz on all forms of social media and get all the clips and everything. What's your handles?
Oh, you can follow me at Kazim. You can I'll talk wrestling with our good friend David Shoemaker
Love
as
him.
well on the Masked Man Show. Check that out. Say less. MSGPM just finished that. Big Nick's victory over Zion Williamson and the Pelicans. But yes, follow me at Kazim, Kazeem, on all social platforms. And please buy some more Wrestlemania merch on Foot Locker and FootX. We're almost sold out.
Let's sell it out, baby. Let's sell it out. Thank you, Kaz. It's always good, man.
Always a pleasure, Sam.